Welcome to Stepdad Success, turning the tide on the way stepdads are seen and show up in the world. We're a new breed of leaders raising leaders. Blood or no blood, we raise them as our own. We're connected, loving, and committed to leading them into the future. If you asked a normal dad, he'd say we're doing the impossible. He'd say, but they're not yours. How do you do it? Yet every day, stepdads around the world are forging the way. That's what we call Stepdad Success. We're leaders raising leaders. And these are our stories.
G'day, this is James Klobassa from Stepdad Success, and today we've got another interview. Today's interview is with Luke Perisin. I hope I'm saying that right. Luke is a firefighter and paramedic and got a bit of a passion and a love for music, film, and the entertainment world. He's got an interesting story to tell, and obviously a stepdad as well, so we're going to dive into everything in today's call, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Luke, welcome, mate. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and great to have you here.
Thank you, James, for having me. It's an honor. I'm humbled that you would ask me to contribute.
All right, mate. I think all the different interviews and stuff I've been doing, everyone's been enjoying them, and it's just great to, as a kind of, what I want to do is open up the conversation. Everyone comes from a different background, they have a different lifestyle and a different life, different challenges, and it's just good to open the conversation up. But in saying that, I'll kick it off by just asking, Luke, can you tell us a little bit about your background? I know you're a paramedic and firefighter, and you've been doing that a little while now, but if you could just fill in the blanks for us, just how many kids you have, just give us that quick background brief.
Sure. I was born and raised in Chicago, one of 6 children, to my mother and father, who are still married to this day, going on 58 years, which is outstanding. I got in the fire service after getting my Bachelor of Science in Economics from Illinois State University, but when I was 23 years old, I couldn't go work on the Board of Trade, in a shirt and tie. I wanted more action, and so I have my Uncle Joe, my cousin Joey, my brother Nick were all in the fire department, and I wasn't aware that you can make a good living in the fire department here in the United States. So I got involved in the fire department. I got my first full-time job 25 years old, and I've been doing that. I did that for 10 years in Chicago. And then I'm someone that enjoys life experience. Of course, I'm motivated, to some degree by money, but only as a means to make sure that that not having money sometimes precludes you from doing things to bring about great experiences. So I sold my house and I sold my business, and I tested out in California. For the last 10 years, I've been a firefighter paramedic for the Orange County Fire Authority in Southern California. Well, through the course of that, part of my motivation for coming to California is my passion for the arts, as a writer, as a singer, as a musician, as an actor. And so over the course of the last 10 years, I've worked in the entertainment industry and also a little bit on the political side of things, just as an actor that that needed to provide support for some political commercials. And I've done commercials, movies, television shows, game shows, reality shows, talk shows, just about everything in between. It's been quite an adventure. But I want to move forward with that. So at 45 years old, I'm now looking at a 50 years old when I can get my pension. I want to transition from the public sector into the private sector, and I'd like to do so in the entertainment industry. Now, I would prefer to just be an artist and just be a musician and an actor and be able to provide for myself that way. But with a wife and 2 children, I better make sure that I've got a foundation to build upon. So I'm pursuing my MBA right now through my fire department, through a partnership they have with an online university, so that I can be a studio executive or work in some fashion with a salaried position or a job in the entertainment industry. And then I will always do my film and my music on the side to fulfill my artistic and creative needs. That way I'm still supporting the arts, and I'm still involved with the industry that I'd like to be in. But that way I lock in my wife and my kids are provided for. And then if I do land a movie role and then I do get a $3 million check cut to me for a role, boom, maybe I leave the executive world and I be an artist full time. Right? At the very least, I got to make sure that those bricks are laid, that foundation is laid.
Yeah.
Something that I enjoy doing. The fire department is great, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm leaving the fire department for any sort of a bad reason whatsoever. It's been outstanding. 25 years full time in the field, as I was talking to you just before we came on, James. For as beautiful as the world is, and for as resilient as the human body is, and what humans are, the world is a very harsh place as well. And
sure.
We all going to live. Well, that means we're all going to die. And
sure.
in 20 years of being a paramedic, I've seen my share of human trauma, and I think that I'm feeling that human trauma more as it affects me emotionally now as I get a little older. I used to think it was badass when I was 30 years old, and I'm on the south side of Chicago, and these guys got bullet holes in them. We used to have a competition. Who would have a patient that was still alive with the most bullet holes in them?
Right.
I guess it's more. It's more
Chicago,
of it.
Yeah, in Chicago, that's probably a daily thing, I'd imagine.
Yeah, it's a very violent place. It's more violent now than it was when I was there, but there were still a lot of shootings. And so, when you deal with mortality, when you deal with the ending of human lives, and these people are, I've stared them dead in the eye, James, while they're passing away in the back of the ambulance, and I got a physician on the line, and I'm speaking to him, and he's giving me, orders for medical procedures, and I'm trying to save this guy, and oftentimes I'd have to look people dead in the face, James, and know that they're going to die, and I'm merely trying to keep them alive so that the doctors can harvest their organs for transplant to people that need them.
Yeah,
and of course, I'm not going to tell the patient that, but we're going to go full resuscitative efforts just in an attempt to keep their heart, their lungs, their liver perfused with oxygenation and fresh blood, so they can hopefully their passing won't be in vain.
I was going to say, Luke, you've certainly seen a lot of life, and I take my hat off to you for 25 years of service in the fire brigade, simply because of the amount of lives you must have saved over that time. It's pretty incredible. And I look at that and I think, wow, and just hearing as we were talking a little bit before the interview started, just about your plans for, after 50 and moving on, you're kind of setting up a 25-year plan. It's interesting, and we'll chat about that a little. I'm looking at it from the perspective of it's an amazing gift to pass on to your kids as well. I mean, you're living life to the fullest. You've got a plan mapped out to kind of take you well into your 70s, with a passion that you love. A lot of kids today are growing up kind of just plodding through life, and you still seem to have this amazing passion for life. I think it's a great thing to pass on. Tell me, have you always had that kind of passion for life and that kind of big long-term plan for yourself?
Well, I've always been one that I consistently hunger for more. And I don't know where it got into me. I have some brothers that are very motivated as well. My oldest brother, Ray, always with the latest challenge. He's going to ride his bicycle from Chicago to Texas. Then he's going to do an Ironman triathlon. Then he's going to go for president of his company. Then he's going to go work for Caterpillar on a global crisis team. Then he's always pushing. And in seeing that, he never settled, even though he was successful, and you can just settle. You can just stop. You can just retire once you have enough money. But there's these people in this world. Why wouldn't Warren Buffett retire at this point in time? He's 82, 83 years old. He's the CEO, chairperson, founder of Berkshire Hathaway. He's worth $50 billion plus, something of that nature, but he doesn't retire. So what is it about people like that? Was it about people like Clint Eastwood, who was still directing movies at 83, or Bob Hope, who was still entertaining in the 90s, or Arnold Schwarzenegger or Sylvester Stallone. They're in the political or entertainment fields. And I look at those guys. Well, now I didn't look at those guys back when I was 20, guys that are in their 70s. But now I'm 45. I need to identify with people that are in their 60s and 70s, and I can't look and like, well, that's retirement time, and that's I'm over the hill, and it's just time for me.
Yeah.
In my field of work, I deal with a lot of people in that age, and the people, of course, I'm working with are in poor health, because that's why they're calling 911. And I see people that are 60, 65 years old, and their bodies, even younger than that. I see people and they're in their 50s. They're in nursing homes already. Yeah, what is the core? What are the path of choices that you've made in your mindset, in your life, in your passions, that result in you being in a nursing home at 55 years old, grossly overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, with coronary artery disease and things of that nature. And I think actually not only my oldest brother, but my mother and father. So my father is 92 years old. He'll be 92 actually this month. Actually.
Wow.
And my mother is 79 years old, and they are in perfect health. They just visited me not long ago. And here's a guy 91 years old still flying across the country, living life.
Yep.
Life, being able to see my youngest son, who's 5 years old, being able to see my father pass away at 80 years old or 82. And since my son's only 5, he would have had to live to 86 just to see my son.
Yeah, wow.
And so that's been a very positive, on me, a positive effect. But if my mother and my father are still pushing hard and they're in their 80s, my mom tells my dad, she says, quit being an old man, she tells him. I go, Mom, he's 91 years old. Take it easy on the guy. Oh, you're acting like you're an old man. You're creaking and stuff like that. Just come on, we got to go now. And of course, she loves him, and it's of course that pistol-like attitude that she carries that is the motivating force behind him getting up, behind him moving, because he probably would sit more than walk if he was given. But my mom's a pistol, and perhaps that gets passed on to me a little bit. So
that's interesting.
And to tell you,
I was just going to say, like my parents are, getting into their 80s as well, and I'm a little bit the same as them. So I guess that's passed down on, I think it's really something to instill into kids as well, is to have that long-term view and not be, sitting around the house, watching TV for the half of your life, which a lot of people do. I was just going to shift a little bit and, how do your kids see you? I mean, you're still very active and you're with your fire department, and are they looking at you kind of seeing you as an active person? I know for myself, like I train in front of the boys and I do a lot of things, with the boys, and I think they still see me as an active person. I hope I'm instilling that kind of long-term view into them. How about you? And just while we're there, how old are your kids?
So my wife, Jacqueline, is 37. I'm 45. My wife, Jacqueline, is 37. My stepson, Grafton, is 14 years old. And my youngest son, Luca, is 5. And my 5-year-old, he's my biological son. I met my wife about 7 years ago. So Grafton was 6, turning 7 at the time that I met him. So he's been in my life for over half of my life. Before I get to the details of our relationships, just in terms of, I have extensive leadership training through the fire department. I've been taking classes. I have a book of certifications in inch thick of all the classes that I've taken. But one leadership principle that you just can never go wrong with is to lead by example.
Sure.
I tell my children, I'm not going to ask you to do anything I won't do. And that's the simplest way to say, when I tell them to put down their phones, guess what? Dad's shutting his phone off too. Yeah. Everyone put your devices away. We're going to spend time together. If I tell you to skate hard on the hockey rink, or I tell you to train hard when they're making you do push-ups, go to the gym. You can come to the gym and you can watch me power out 60 minutes of weight training. And I'm an older guy, and then go down to the track and run sub 7-minute miles. I wish I could say sub 6 minutes, but I don't think that's going to happen anymore, James. So I'll take sub 7, baby. That's good enough.
There's a lot of people that can't run 7s, mate, so that's good enough. That's plenty good enough.
Right.
Yeah, right.
And then when it comes to school, I'm really excited to start school again. My mind hungers for knowledge, and especially with the children in school. If I'm working, being in school is different than working because everyone has to have a job, but not everyone has to go to school. So I'm glad that they see me studying. I'm writing papers, and on Thursday nights I go drive to the local campus. It's mostly online, but they have a local campus, and I like to attend class. I like sitting in class with professors. I just love the learning environment. So from a perspective of leadership when it comes to education and professionalism, they're going to get great guidance from me. The tricky part, James, which I think is the heart of the matter, which is why I was interested in speaking with somebody like yourself who has considerable experience talking to people like myself. It's the emotional guidance that I provide them. It's my commitment to my wife, and it's my commitment to them. Obviously, I have the capabilities, intelligence, and drive to succeed in a professional and educational way, but I am sorely lacking in my ability to let down my walls, to just expose my inner thoughts and feelings, in order to build these bridges, with my wife and my children. And it's not easy for me. I struggle with it.
Yeah, and I think you're certainly not alone there, mate. There's, even just with your background, you have to actually shut out a lot of what you see, and not kind of like, you can't afford to break down in the back of the ambulance when the guy's got bullet holes in him and he's kind of pleading for his life, and you're there to kind of, that's not the place where you can break down. So you're trained to a point to be firm, almost like the military, where guys are trained to be tough and not to show emotion. And after 25 years of service there in the fire department, I'd assume there's a lot of that built within you. And I've heard a lot of guys that I've interviewed as well, they do struggle. I think guys in general struggle with showing their emotion. I know myself, I struggle with it. And I grew up in a fairly rough household where, showing emotion was frowned upon, and you probably got a beating for it, So I think as guys, a lot of us would like to show more emotion, but we just haven't learned that skill. And I believe it is a learned skill for most men. It's certainly a tricky one.
I completely agree. And it sounds like it would just be simple. Well, you just emote. You just say these things. Obviously, there's no risk to my wife and my children of me exposing myself to being vulnerable. I'm not going to be judged by them in any way. They're going to be supportive of me and probably appreciative of what we're speaking of if I were to take that. So what is it that stops me then? What is it that stops me? Why don't I do this then? Even though I know that it probably would be beneficial. You can close that door, Luca. My kids are coming through the garage right now. They're tiptoeing through, trying to get their bikes out.
That's okay.
So, okay, you get your bike out too. Go ahead. So, and I don't give my wife the affection that she deserves. I don't give my children the attention and the love that they deserve. It's a good question why. It's why I do training and I speak with people. And maybe some of it is innate. Some people are naturally. Why don't you can just open the garage door, Luca, and take your bike out. Okay, you want to go through that one? Okay, sorry about that, James.
That's okay.
Some people are naturally more sensitive and okay with it. Maybe it is some of my training. Maybe it is the fact that I've been trained to not show emotion. When you talk about my reaction to people that lose their lives, one of the elements of my job is these people are in mourning, and then their family shows up in the emergency room, and we see them coming in. I go, oh my gosh, these people's lives are blown, right? Well, I'm looking at my mobile data terminal in my rig, and there's more calls going out. I don't have time to sit and think and ponder this. I've got another call. They're calling, medic 57, medic 1, medic whatever, are you available for another run? And we throw our bags back in there and we put it back together, and then we take off, we run another call. And an hour later, it doesn't even occur to me that I, watched somebody's grandfather pass right in front of the family, So I don't have time. Now, one thing they do teach us in the fire department, and it has helped me, I carry it with me to this day, is that God just kills people. And whatever your religion or creed is, unless you're atheist, God just kills people, and people have only so much time on the planet. Yeah. There's nothing that I did, unless I make some sort of a egregious medication error in violation of protocol, that kills them. I'm only there to help. Yeah. And there's a lot more people on this earth today, with me being a medic for 20 years full time. I've saved a considerable amount of lives. So for the hundreds that I've seen pass away, there's the thousands that I've helped, and probably a couple of hundred that I directly had a hand in the extending of their lifespan. That I successfully resuscitated them, or I did what needed to be done, or at least be able to identify, let's say, the effects of a stroke. There's not much that I can do in the field, but what I can do is I can identify that stroke, and boom, we're moving fast. We're moving code 3. Get me a position on the line. I can describe to him that we're 18, 22, 26 minutes into the time of onset, and they need to get those clot-busting drugs in that guy's system within 60 minutes. Mm-hmm. And even if I don't necessarily save their lives, I certainly will improve the quality of their life, because if their stroke is misdiagnosed in the field and someone drags their feet, takes them to the wrong hospital that doesn't have the correct neurological functioning and surgical interventions, those capabilities, well, that person could have deficits for the rest of their life. But like I said, I'm just trained to look at these people. I don't see race. I don't see creed. I don't see color. I see clinical statistics that come out when I perform a patient assessment. I just see blood pressures. I see skin conditions. I see cardiac rhythms. I see blood glucose readings. I see, and I just work from a clinical standpoint. So, you don't have an emotional connection to these people, but I do have that with my children, with my wife, and my kids. So I don't know, maybe I would say definitively after 20 years in the fire service, it probably affects me in some fashion, because I do have a side of me that can just be cold at times. Yeah. Yeah. And that's understandable. It's not I don't think it's a bad thing. I think, you need to have it for your position. It's interesting because, we've chatted a little bit about, you struggling with actually being a stepdad and that situation. Tell me just a little bit more about that and how you see that for yourself. Because, everyone has their own different struggles in the actual, being a step parent. Some people just love it. Some people don't. Some people, there's lots of things that we need to deal with. And these are all the dynamics that we, I'm kind of discussing on these interviews, just the different ones. So what are they for you? What's the real struggle that you see there? Well, the biggest struggle was having to give up what was, in my mind, the plan that I had. Now, it sounds like I have a perfectly formulated plan, how I've explained to you my transition from the private to the public sector, public to private sector, et cetera, et cetera. But that plan's only come about in the last year or so. Yeah. I'm an aggressive person. I'm a proactive person. And I found myself being reactionary to what was happening to me. Right. All of a sudden I have these children. All of a sudden I have a wife. All of a sudden I have in-laws. All of a sudden I have a son that, as bad as it sounds, James, the reality of it is you just don't have that immediate unconditional love that's just gonna, first especially when you're meeting a young man like I met Grafton at 6 years old. I'm not his dad yet, so first off, I just got to be the kid's friend. I have to make sure that he just enjoys being around me. Well, what happens when it starts to change, and all of a sudden, after a year or two, I'm no longer your friend, little buddy. I'm your dad.
Sure.
You got to go to, you got to do your homework. You got to go to bed. You got to eat your vegetables. I'm going to discipline you when you misbehave. I'm going to reward you when you succeed and when you do something good. And all of a sudden, I'm not your friend anymore. So in the beginning, the first, 6 months or year that you're starting to build this relationship, it's just all ice cream and, hey, what's up, man? And you're just playing with them and playing video games because you're not their dad. I'm still just trying to build a relationship with the young man's father, with the young man's mother, and see if our relationship has legs. Just those interpersonal dynamics between everybody. Obviously, my son Grafton has a much closer relationship with his mom, my wife, Jacqueline.
Yeah.
They have a bond that I'll never be able to approach. He looks to her a lot, which is completely understandable because, from birth till he was 6.5, 7 years old, that was all he knew as guidance and as discipline and as support, So my biggest struggle has been to let go of the plan that I previously had and have to formulate a new one. My other plan, I was starting to work with my union's executive board at the fire department, and I was going to transition over, since I was learning collective bargaining unit negotiations and labor management, I was going to move into SAG-AFTRA, which is the actors union. Right when I got hired, right when I won my election onto my union's executive board is when my girlfriend at the time tells me that she's pregnant. And all of a sudden, within a year, there's a baby out and we're planning a wedding.
Right. Okay.
And I previously was flying from Washington, D.C., and I was flying to Sacramento. I had worked with the previous 3 governors here, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Jerry Brown, and Gray Davis, and I drafted, I was Governor Schwarzenegger's the spokesperson for one of his campaigns, and we traveled all across California and made political appearances, and then I transitioned into working with Gray Davis, and I'm in Jerry Brown now, and I've been to D.C., and I've been walking to all the Congress lobbying the political representatives there for advance our agenda of labor management and to lobby them for funds. And all of a sudden, a year later, I'm holding a baby.
Yeah. Different
war rooms. Where I'm used to walking into war rooms and tangling across the conference table, saying, "Let's rock." I have an agenda to advance. I want to make sure, from a business perspective, there's a mutually beneficial relationship that we developed here. But that was where one of my strengths was, and all of a sudden, I go from that to pushing a stroller and having a 7-year-old and newborn, and trying to cooperate and collaborate with a wife.
It's interesting, Luke. Like, you obviously had to make a massive transition there, and like, I'm assuming there's a lot of guys out there that are probably in similar positions, probably chasing, whether they be chasing big roles in business or, sporting careers or whatever they might be, that probably have that same thing happen to them. Tell me, like, what was it like for you at the time? Like, were you like just juggling, or were you like pissed off, or what was happening to you at the time when all that was going on? Because this is, it's not often, talked about as far as how the men are actually feeling when we have to readjust our lives. The women get plenty of conversation on that. We don't necessarily see that side of the conversation, or we don't get to open up on that side of the conversation. So what was that like for you, where, essentially plans were shot and you had to reevaluate?
It was very difficult. It was very difficult. I go from, and now remember, I was a lifelong bachelor. So I'm 40 years old. I'm living by myself. So my house, I set my house up. I buy nice art. I make sure that everything's lined out exactly the way I want it. I leave the house. I go to the fire department. I come back. Or I fly to D.C. I come back. The house is exactly the way I left it. Yeah. And I got a wife and 2 children living there. And I set the whole house up, and I leave, and I come back 3 days later, and the place is destroyed. I go up, and I'm trying to work at my desk in my office, and I used to have a process. The bills are over here. The inbox is here. The checks get written here, et cetera. My wife's been working at the desk for 3 days, and hey, honey, I had system here. This is the way the desk works, the office my office. And I'm shell shocked. And the biggest thing that I could say that I would tell myself is now I'm moving in reactionary fashion to what's happening to me instead of being the proactive force. That principle of I am the one creating my output. I'm the one creating the productivity. I'm the one driving the train, so I know what's going on. Now, this also coincides with the nature of my job. I work 24-hour shifts, 48-hour shifts, 72-hour shifts. If I work 9 to 5 Monday through Friday, I can come home, and if there's any, for lack of a better term, course correction that needs to be taken in the house, I'm home every night at 6 o'clock to make sure that night and the next morning things are course corrected. Just from my own sense of my anal retentive nature,
sure.
And my our own small sense of that we like to be in control of things. So for anybody who's listening to this that is a firefighter or maybe even a police officer that works nights or something like that and they get to sleep all day.
Even shift
that's
workers.
Where, yeah. Right, sure. The nurses work 12-hour shifts sometimes, and they don't work that normal schedule. So I'm gone from the house for days on end. And my wife developed their own sense of independence because they can't rely on me because I'm not there. So they need to do what they need to do in order to be clothed and warm and sheltered and fed. And then I come in, and maybe that's not the way that I would have done things. But now they've already got a smaller ecosystem in the family without me that it's a necessity because I'm gone a lot. And then I'm trying, instead of driving the train, instead of dictating the pace of what we do and where we go and how we do it, I'm much more trying to collaborate with what is already going on without me. And it's the seeding of the power that I had that really, you probably just by talking, you can tell I'm an ambitious guy. I'm a motivated guy. I like to knock targets down. I like to set goals. I like to challenge myself, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And all of a sudden I walk into home life that's kind of a different world for me. And I'm like, whoa, this is not what the fuck are these toys doing all over the place? What's going on here? What happened to the desk? What the heck? The garbage isn't taken out. The dog shit in the backyard. Listen, the garbage cans go out on Thursday morning. The dog shit gets picked up. These toys go here. The fixing blah, blah. And I wanted to line everything out again, but I got to go back to work the next day. So it's actually still something that I'm struggling with and that I'm trying to get through. Now, I've talked to just about everybody at some point. I've talked to therapists. I've talked to family. I've talked to friends. I've talked to coworkers. I even met with one of our fire department. I've talked to my wife about it, and I don't know if there's a definitive answer. And I think that maybe I should stop trying to look for an answer and say, you know what, life is nebulous and dynamic, and it's always changing. So maybe, that plan I talked about earlier about the way that I'll move into the entertainment industry, it's not going through labor management and through collective bargaining, which is what I initially had planned. So why don't I just move forward with the plans that I have and make sure that they succeed, knowing that they may change again in another year or two.
It's interesting. Don't know. It's interesting because it's kind of like, to be quite honest, I'm in exactly the same boat as you. Like I met my partner when I was 39. We've been together 7 years now. But I understand, like, my house, I was pretty much a bachelor for, the 40 years before that, or 39 years before that, and come into my house, and it was all laid out. I totally understand. You got the office, you got the inbox, where the bills go, the checks go, like, everything's laid out. Like you said, I totally understand it. And it's, it's one of those things that there's a letting go that has to happen. And it's tough. Like, I still deal with it some days. Like I come home and I'm pretty relaxed nowadays, but some days I come home and there's toys everywhere, and I'm like, right, like the the tyrant comes out, and that anal guy that likes everything in the right spot, that's still inside me, and it definitely is a tough one to let go of. I think it's probably something that a lot of guys our age that that they have to deal with. And like these things, as I said, these things aren't discussed. And we come home, we talk to a partner about it, and they're upset at us. Well, they're like, "Why are you getting so upset?" It's like, well, because for the last 40 years I've been doing it my way, and now all of a sudden I have to let go and give in to everyone around me. It's not an easy transition.
No, not at all. And so through my self-analysis, through my conversations with others, there's a couple facts that, let's at least start nailing down some facts. Let's start laying some bricks down on that wall so we can build the house. Number one, I'm in control of my thoughts, and I'm in control of my own behaviors. So whatever happens in my life, in my house, the first thing that I do is I look at my behavior, the things that I did, the things that I said. Was I yelling? Was I angry? Was I not opening up my heart and my soul to my children? Was I unnecessarily, was I treating my children differently? Whatever it is, we need to take responsibility for the decisions that we make and the actions that we do.
Exactly.
I didn't need to tell, in the harshest terms. I could have told Jackie, you know what, we're getting an abortion, we're breaking up. This is all done. But I didn't.
Yep.
So that, I'm not going to do that. This is my chance to have, a son or a daughter in this world, So then that's the decision where it starts. And then from there, they move from there. Couple of the other things is obviously, I look at people, I've made mention of Warren Buffett and made mention of some of these other people in the world. I look at guys like Elon Musk. I look at guys like Richard Branson. These guys have wives and children. They've had multiple wives and children from different wives and stuff. Yet they still are excelling at a massively high level. They are visionaries. They are inspiring people. I don't know if they're good husbands and fathers. Maybe they're horrible husbands and fathers, and they're just great businessmen. But certainly they have family, and there's no reason that whether I have a wife and 2 children that people have considerable greater obstacles to cover and adversity to cover in order to burst in that upper echelon, not necessarily of wealth for me. Like I said, life experience. If that wealth leads into life experiences that I can have, great. It's not strictly about the money. So I look at people that have families or that have had similar experiences that have overcome and succeeded. And so I say, if that person does it, well, why can't I do it? I'll do it just the same as them. And then, of course, it's just our own attitudes. It's the attitude that I take when I come in the door every day.
Sure.
Do I come in the door as a supportive husband for my wife, as an affectionate husband? Do I come in the door as a supportive personality for my children? Do I love them equally? Do I give of them both my time and my energy and my love to ensure that they feel loved and they feel wanted and they're going to carry that through their life? So, it starts with me. It starts with my own heart, my own soul, and my own mind. Obviously, from a professional and an educational standpoint, I have no needs. I'll be able to smash any target I put my mind on. But, your wife and your kids, they're not targets you can smash,
That's right, yeah.
They're humans. They're gentle. They laugh. They bleed. They cry. They have needs. They get hungry. They got to go to the bathroom. They get sick. And that's where I struggle is turning off that cold-minded business analytical, I'm just going to take charge and kick ass every day and everyone get out of my way.
Yeah.
You know what? That don't work, James. That don't work in the house.
No, it doesn't.
You're an asshole.
Tell me.
Asshole to your wife and you're an asshole to your kids. And if you come in like that, I can't come in like that. Even though I'm a big, strong ass kicking guy, I can't do that. So I'm trying to reinvent myself,
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me, just on that, what's the biggest thing you've had to let go of?
Mostly just the concept of freedom. If you were 39 now, we're probably pretty similar. I was 40 years old and I'm a kind of a wild guy. the way that I lift weights, man, the way that I ride motorcycles, the way that I play music. If I get meaty acting roles, I will throw myself into them in uninhibited fashion. And it's a free mind and a free soul that I have. And I'm liable to pick up and jet to some locale. And I have no qualms entering into anything. I'll walk into a courtroom and tangle with attorneys. I'll walk into a punk rock club and take my shirt off and throw an elbow just for fun, and everything in between. And and people will be like, God, I had quite the reputation. I probably still have quite the reputation, more so in Chicago when I was really wild. Yeah. But I feel like I can't behave like that anymore. My wife would say, what in God's name? You can't show up to the kids' recital with black leather pants on and a Megadeth shirt at a Catholic school. You know what I mean? Which, not that I would do that anyways, but I'm just throwing an example out there of,
sure.
I don't know, I used to shave my head into mohawks, man, or you know what I mean? Or it's harmless, but it would certainly had a little bit of a shock factor to it. And I feel as though my actions are a little bit more sedate. That's why I like to create artistically, because I can't. It's like a volcano. If you freaking try to stop up a volcano, the freaking sides are going to burst out. You can't do it. You can't stop it. You can't stop it. It's like a wildfire. You can't stop a wildfire. All you can try to do is kind of direct it away from the homes. Because it's 20, 30, 60,000 acres. We need airplanes and bulldozers. The men on the ground are risking their lives to go in there. You can't stop that. You're not going to build a wall and say, I'm going to stop this wildfire right here. No, it's going to kill everybody in its way.
I think that's a great lesson right there, Luke, just for guys out there listening that are like, feel this tension rising. Everyone's got to have an outlet. And I think there's probably a lot of guys out there that don't have that outlet, or they don't allow themselves to have that outlet. Like, you're obviously, you can spot that. You understand, your own body. You know that you have to put it into your creative side or your motorcycle, like in music, whatever. I think there's probably a lot of guys out there that feel that pressure and don't give themselves that outlet. Was that something you knew from kind of straight away, or was that sort of over time you were like, I still need to let this go? Because I think a lot of guys hold that back.
You absolutely, if you don't have that outlet, it will manifest itself in negative ways in your life. And you'll start drinking more because you've got that energy. So let's say it's an energy that you're trying to release. You can release it in positive fashion, but if you don't, it's going to get released one way or the other. So I'm talking about stopping that volcano. You're better off letting it out the top or trying to stop a wildfire. You're better off trying to guide it to where you want it to go rather than standing in the path of it and getting annihilated. And from my own experience, 20 years in the fire service, and I've seen guys go through the ringers with divorces, with custody battles, things of that nature. And then on top of the PTSD, the long-term accumulative effect of sleepless nights and the human trauma that we witness. And all of a sudden, guys start to drink more. And all of a sudden, you'll see a guy gets a DUI. And then he gets another DUI. And where you see these red flags, and then before you know it, well, it doesn't turn out well. More times than not, it ends up in, then the marriage that was struggling as it was, alcoholism and DUIs aren't going to help. That turns into divorce. Then the alcoholism and DUIs turn into depression. And now all of a sudden you've got a snake eating its tail. The circle is getting tighter. The spiral is getting deeper and faster. The wife now, let's say, is filing for divorce, is saying she's getting much more distant because of your behavior, and things are starting to go downward. That snowball is getting bigger and bigger as it rolls downhill faster and faster until then it turns into drug addiction or ultimately suicide, which I've witnessed 5 gentlemen in my career, 5 firefighters that have committed suicide, taken their own lives. And every single one of them, there was, in retrospect, we looked at the signals. He started having problems at work. He was burning lots of sick time. he got into a fight somewhere. Like, really, that guy doesn't ordinarily get into a fight. So he got in a fight at a football game. He got drunk. And you would think, oh, if someone goes to a football game, gets in a fight, no big deal. But you start looking at it in the grander context, then he gets a DUI. Then he misses another day of work. And then all of a sudden the divorce comes before you know it. And I've had five people, not super close friends of mine, but at least acquaintances that I know that have committed suicide, which is the ultimate act of collapse, of implosion. You need to have that outlet to start. You need to have that outlet. You got to direct it. As frustrated or as crazy, your mind's going nuts. You're pissed off. You're frustrated. You want to lift weights. You want to ride motorcycles. You want to play guitar. I don't care if you want to stand on top of a hill and scream at the heavens for an hour or two. You've got to get it out of your heart and your soul, man. You've got to release.
I love that term you said there, Luke, like a snake eating its tail. And it's so true. It's insidious. You know, the one bad thing can lead to another, that leads to the drinking, that leads to the DUI, that leads to the divorce, that leads to more drinking, to, like you say, that it's so, like, I think this is probably a big issue across the board, across marriage. It's why there's so much divorce, across the whole game. It's, guys need to have this outlet to get rid of this energy that's inside of us. And we all have it, just in different levels. But if we can't recognize it, we do end up becoming the snake that eats its tail.
Right. And it starts to gain momentum somehow. And whatever you need to do to stop that momentum, whatever you need to stop, course correct, reverse action. And I'll tell anybody listening, this is not going to be easy. If you feel these thoughts creeping into your mind, that's the beginning of it. That's the beginning of it. If you say, you know what, I'm going to come home and instead of dealing with my wife and kids, I'm going to pour myself a freaking fat glass of vodka. And you know what? It starts off as just a splash, and a month and a half later, it's a full rocks glass, and the splash is just a little bit of lemonade. And you're drinking a big glass of vodka, and you're like, well, someone has a drink when they come home. And then you use some sort of term like, oh, I just have a couple of drinks when I get home to take the edge off. No, you're having those couple glasses of vodka because you're just trying to numb the pain or avoid. It's just easier to talk to people when you're a little drunk, and you're like, now you're trying to communicate with your wife and kids when you're drunk. So the human body, the human mind, the human heart, the human soul. I tell people that the soul is infinite. The soul is not quantifiable. You give me a car, I can tell you it's got 700 horsepower, 400 horsepower. You can give me a car, I can tell you how many RPMs it runs, or you can give me a bank account, I can tell you how much money's in there. But the power of your soul is not quantifiable in any means, which means it's an unlimited source of power. So at my times that I dabbled with drugs in when I was in my 20s. Heck, I did a lot of drugs for about 3 to 5 years straight. I was just doing drugs. My friends were all doing drugs, but I had some times there I had some real problems. But I always thought to myself that however deep I am, there's always another level of power in your soul, because no one can ever tell you that it's not there. You just need to drill through it to find it. And that will ultimately, you'll find that bedrock at the bottom if you drill deep enough and you get to the bottom of that soul. And you know what? Then you start taking those cinder blocks, you start building the foundation from there. And then you'll rise up again and you'll raise back up. So if there's anybody listening to this that struggles with alcohol or hides from dealing with their family by coming home and smoking a fat joint, or if anybody is depressed or considering, just remember that there is limits to the bottom of your soul, to the level of power and strength that resides inside your soul. It's limitless. God gave it to you, and only He can take it away. And you have access to that if you just focus on it.
Yeah, I think that's a great message, Luke, because a lot of guys do suffer from it. As far as depression goes, as far as challenging challenging themselves, as you said, the snake eating its tail. I think a lot of guys come up against that, getting the energy out is a big one. And yeah, definitely just knowing that, no matter how low you go, you can always fight back from it. You can always fight back. There is always someone in a worse position than you, and you can always come back from adversity. It's, I think you've got a great attitude towards life, Luke, just in all that you're doing and just all that we've discussed here today. It's been awesome. Mate, I will wrap this up shortly. I don't want to I know we've been going for a little while, and I don't want to hold too much of your time. But just, before we go, is there sort of one or two things that you could pass on to the guys that you think are kind of your tips for life, really? Because we haven't had a big discussion around the kids today, but I think it's been a great discussion around life and just dealing with challenges and dealing with our emotions and overcoming the struggles that a lot of us face. And these relate to they relate to the kids, they relate to everyone across the board. So is there any one or two things there that you can pass on?
Well, I would say the first thing, one of the things that I've learned is the concept of patience and the concept of bringing calm to yourself, and the concept of saying, like you said there is a letting go that needs to happen. And if you're type A, if you're aggressive, if you're motivated, you don't want to let go. You want to hold on tight, and you want to bend life to your will. And perhaps there's a learning curve. Certainly, I'm still in that learning curve. I am by no means a great husband. I'm a good husband. I'm a good father. I would say I'm not a great husband. I'm not a great father. I'm doing my best. But there's a patience and a calm that you need to find and access, because getting worked up doesn't do you any good. Getting mad doesn't do you any good. Yelling ends the communication process. And I'm by no means a pro at this, but I do know that when I calm down, I settle my mind, I settle those feelings. If you just look into your heart and you look into your chest and you just get a sense of the feeling that resides there, you're going to pass that on to your kids. If you're a bundle of nerves, you're going to pass that. Your kids are going to feel that. There's an aura that people give off, and it's palpable. And call it karma, call it whatever it is that you have. But when people are upset. 80% of communication is nonverbal. Find that calm. Take a deep breath. Realize that you have an opportunity to be a positive impact on your, about what we're talking about here today is being a stepdad. And all these things I'm talking about are to inspire my son, my stepson, my sons, and have patience. And if your plans get a monkey wrench thrown into them like they did with me, then take a step back. Panicking is not going to do anybody any good. Reevaluate, reformulate a new plan, start moving forward, build a new foundation.
I think they're wise words, like you come from a background of leadership. And as you said early on in this call, there's only one way to really pass on knowledge, and that's by leading the way, of being the example. And I think, I'm sure in your family, your kids see that for sure. You've got an amazing attitude towards life, and you're obviously a solid leader, within your community. So, mate, I take my hat off to you. And I again thank you for the service to the firefighting department. That is a job that I personally don't think I could do. I think it's one of those jobs that only certain people are put on this earth to do, and it's an amazing service. Luke, thanks so much for being on the call today, and mate, I will make sure that as many stepdads as possible hear this conversation, because it's been a great one. Thanks again.
James, I just want to thank you so much for inviting me. It's actually been very cathartic for me to say these things out loud. There's a lot of these things I'm saying to you, I just say them to myself in my own brain. And
Sure.
it feels good to say them to somebody else and to get that all out, because we're not alone, man. I'm sure there's some guy out there who's at least some of the things I said nailed a couple nails on the head for somebody, and just always know, whoever's listening to this, that whatever you're going through, you are not alone. There's somebody out there with you, and if that guy's not going to give up, then you can't either.
That's exactly right, Luke. I'll leave it right there, mate. They were wise words to finish up on. Thanks again.
Would you like to learn more about how stepdads across the globe are joining forces in raising the next generation of leaders? Then head to www.stepdadsuccess.com and grab all the show notes plus a copy of the brand new tactical guide for creating more happiness, health, wealth, and wisdom as a stepdad. And if you liked the podcast, please share it with other stepdads you know and leave us a review on iTunes. Again, that's www.stepdadsuccess.com for all the show notes and tactical guide. Come and join the new breed of stepdads, the growing group of leaders raising leaders.